Senator. Senator Murkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses today, and thank you for this hearing. It is vitally important. I perhaps come at this with a little bit unique perspective. I may be the only member who is actually born in a territory. I'm looking at my colleague from Hawaii there, but yeah, I was born in one of the territories, so I relate here. But I'm also one of the few on this committee, though, who was here when we finalized the 2010 compact with Palau, and as was pointed out, that was a deal that was a long time in the making. We had good conversations yesterday about this, but you know, my recall, my experience with that last round, I'm looking at this, and I don't want to be in a situation where it's deja vu all over again, because as you have pointed out, Mr. Yu, Ambassador Yun, what happened in that intervening time period was unfortunate. It was inexcusable on many levels. This back and forth. It was literally a situation of our federal family pointing fingers at one another in terms of whose responsibility it was to come up to the funding. But that uncertainty, I think, did considerable damage to the reputation of the United States. It sent a signal not only to Palau that we might be pretty good at signing things, but our follow-through wasn't very good. And it was not just Palau that was paying attention to that. It was others in the region. It was China. And so I am very cautious as we're sitting here today. We know that the national security outlook in the Pacific has changed considerably since 2010. You know, China is not sitting back. They're not sitting on their hands here. And Ambassador Yun, you encouraged us to read this lengthy letter from President Panuelo, and it is really quite telling. I have read it, and it should disturb us all, the actions that they are taking. I was going to ask you a question very similar to what my colleague from New Mexico has asked in terms of what message does inaction on this agreement send to the world, and I think you have articulated that relatively well. I think, Dr. Mohamdas, you have also shared with us how the national security outlook in the region has changed in these past 20 years and how this advances the urgency, if you will, and the importance of finalizing these agreements in an efficient manner. I want to direct this question to you, Ambassador Yun. The issue with the Marshall Islands and the challenges now in getting them on board as a signatory, even though they've signed the MOU. It's been identified that insufficient compensation effectively is what is holding things back. Can you speak first to how important it is that we avoid the situation from the last round when agreements were delayed so considerably? And then would you please very generally summarize the top-line funding amounts and weigh in as to whether or not you think that this is enough? Perhaps one way to do that is to compare the Compact 2003 level of funding for Marshall Islands and Micronesia and the 2010 Compact with Palau.
Thank you, Senator Murkowski. I think you can understand that with my Marshallese counterparts here, I am a little bit reluctant to get into too deeply into the weeds because they are new to negotiations. As you know, they've said they've changed the chief negotiator who used to be Kitlan Kabur, now Foreign Minister Jack Adding and Chief Negotiator Philip Mueller are with us today. But we talk frankly with each other, as well as the Speaker Keddy, who is here. I mean, to be again, you can ask them the same question. I do believe the amount we've offered them is, we talked about it months and came to a very satisfactory agreement. In fact, RMI was the first country to agree with our top line offers. And then came Palau next, and then came Micronesia last. So when they agreed, the first to agree, I never thought we would not reach an agreement until now, So I believe there are involved domestic issues there. There is an election coming up in November. And for a while, there were rumors that there would be a vote of no confidence in the president that would be coming up next week. So, I mean, again, despite being uncomfortable speaking in front of my Marshallese friends, I offer that as maybe partial reasons. Domestic politics, of course, triumphs everywhere over anything else. And so I told my Marshallese colleagues, listen, there is no more money. 2.3 billion is more than double what we have given them over the last 20 years. And so one reason this compact package is large is because of our concerns that even though our legal responsibility for nuclear testing have been met, we still owe them politically, as well as continued radiation and suffering and health effects they are suffering. So we are making allowances for that while upholding our legal responsibilities. That's a fine line to make sure I don't get into trouble legally with our own legal side. At the same time, do something that is dignified as President Kabua initially said that we should do. And that test is something we met, and they were the first one to sign the MOU. And so am I disappointed? Of course I'm disappointed. But at the end of the day, when it's all settled, I firmly believe they will see that this is an offer that they can meet, that should be acceptable. So there we are.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we have Senator King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Late last year, I had the occasion